And welcome to the Monster Report live here on YouTube and on Facebook. My name is Nick Adam. I'm your host for tonight. And the Monster Report is a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. It is the year of our Lord 2025. And instead of looking forward, we're looking backward. Trying to talk to some people around my same age about things that we grew up with, whether it's our childhood, teenage years, college years, whatever it was. There was all kinds of media, IP, books, movies, music, anything that we grew up with. And that's why we've titled this series, and this is the first episode of this new series on the Monster Report Live, talking about my generation. I can't use that song because it's copywritten, and one of my guests knows exactly what that means when it comes to copyright and everything that goes along with YouTube and the copyright bots. I'm quite familiar with them as well, but we're still here and we're glad you're here. So if you're here, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already here on the Monster Report, getting close to 100,000 subscribers, about 1,000 subscribers to go. It's just right above the mountain and I'm so close to it. And it's all because of you that is possible. Let us know in the chat if we're sounding good, if we look good. I don't know if we look good. Well, you know, my guests, they're so much better than me because I'm going to bring them on here. I like content creators. I like kaiju content creators. Even though we're kaiju content creators, we're going to be talking about IP that is somewhat non-kaiju as well. So buckle up, get ready. Here we go. Let's bring in our guests. Let's introduce our guests. He's a fan, such a big fan, you might even call him a freak. I invited him today here because Leslie Chambers will rag on him instead of me. Paragon is still looking for him underground to smash his house and his dreams. Grab a Crystal Pepsi and a bag of corn nuts and say hello to my good friend and host of the YouTube channel GodzillaFanFreaks, Everett Grondin.
What's up, everybody?
Airwaves. He's always smiling because he lives in the sunny state of Florida. Not just a fan, but an all-inclusive Zilla fan. He woke up this morning to hear that TikTok was gone and just carried on with his day. Say your prayers, take your vitamins. Michael Mania is running wild. Host of the ZillaFan 85 YouTube channel, Mr. Michael Young.
Greetings and salutations, YouTubers.
All right, we got to make this epic for this first episode. So, with that in mind, gentlemen, good to have you here. Everett and Michael, how you been?
Doing really good, really excellent.
All right, what'd you think of the open?
Oh, that was fantastic. That was great. I have a smile ear to ear right now. That was awesome.
when you told us WWE introductions, you certainly weren't kidding, were you?
And I thought of you. I knew that you were big into the Hulkamania. So What is it? Eat your vitamins, say your prayers, right?
Yep. And train hard every day.
That's right. That's right. All right. So just in case they don't know you in the chat, they should know you in the chat. So give your quick introductions and we'll get into this episode talking about some classic IP, kaiju or non-kaiju related. Everett, take it from here.
Well, everybody, my name is GodzillaFanFreaks. I run the GodzillaFanFreaks YouTube channel. I also have a GodzillaFanFreaks Facebook page and Instagram page. So please go check all of those platforms out. Subscribe, like, follow if you haven't already. I do basically kind of figure reviews. I do sometimes do live shows. I really want to get back into my Kaiju Chill O'Clocks again. It's where I could just sit down with you guys and we could all just hang out, ask me questions. We talk about what's going on in the collecting community, what's coming out. That's what you can expect from me. I'm a pretty much basic, down-to-earth Godzilla YouTuber, as I like to say. Michael, take it away.
Thank you so much, Everett. Oh, man, GodzillaFanFreaks. My inspiration, or one of my main inspirations for YouTube, other than Angry Video Game Nerd, was, you know, that kind of goes without saying. But, oh, my goodness. Yep, I am, of course, another kaiju creator. If he's a down, sort of super down, basic kaiju creator, I am an ultra down kaiju YouTube creator. Like I said, he was a big inspiration for me. My channel, GodzillaFan85, of course. I have it here on YouTube. I also have an Instagram page that sort of coincides with it, and I'll post some other things here and there because I like to have fun with, you know, not just photos, but doing like some of the reels and such on Instagram. So planning to do more of that in the future. But my mainstay, of course, my YouTube channel, mainly do Godzilla and kaiju figure reviews. I have dabbled a little bit into doing some video game playthroughs, let's plays, and I definitely plan to do some more of those because I have some games that are really near and dear to me that I really love and would love to do some more playthroughs on those. So that's definitely something as well. But again, my mainstay, my Godzilla and kaiju figure reviews. And, you know, just really, really happy to be here, part of this stream. Both of these gentlemen above me are absolutely fantastic and awesome people. And can't say enough good about them. Nick?
All right. Glad to have you all here. And make sure, again, you like and subscribe to these gentlemen's channels out there on YouTube. And we're going to get into some classic IP stuff we grew up with, whether it's obscure or not. Some of these things we just like to, I kind of think of it like when you were in school, you did show and tell, you know, you brought something in and you showed it to your friends. And it's like, yeah, I've never seen that before, never heard of that before. You know, hopefully you brought something in that was appropriate. You didn't bring in a copy of James Cameron's Aliens, right? Though I did watch that movie as a kid. Probably shouldn't have been when I was 5 or 6 or whatever, but I was watching these movies. They were on our HBO. They were on VHS tape and all kinds of things. Speaking of VHS tape, so I like to start with some Transformers. I love Grimlock here. I love the Transformers 86 movie with Unicron and the death of Optimus Prime, the most tragic, amazingly sad death in all of childhood, as it were. So, but yeah, you guys are probably big fans of the Transformers movie, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And some of the voice acting that was in that, right? I mean, it had Leonard Nimoy, Orson Welles, I mean, Judd Nelson. I mean, just
amazing cast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I've always loved the Dinobots, so talking some Grimlock. This is actually from the more newer-ish Transformers line. They had their Series 86, I think they called it, line, and they have the Series whatever, every other kind of line that they have. So, yeah, was a big fan of the original G1 kind of Transformers. And this is where they were like, we're going to make this movie, and then we're going to kill off a lot of the Autobots so that we can replace them with new ones and, make new toys. But some of the characters, though, the Dinobots, you can't kill the Dinobots. You can't get rid of Grimlock. So, I mean, how are you supposed to replace that? Any of you guys Transformers fans?
Yeah, no, I grew up with Transformers. One of my family members actually had the really old school ones that were actually made out of metal and, tin and stuff that you could transform and everything. And I grew up with Transformers. I grew up with the movie, the cartoon, and I had some of the toys, but I was never big into transforming them because as a kid, my brain just did not comprehend the instructions. And so then my figures would always get to like a half transformed mess, and then I couldn't figure out how to get them back to like normal. So then they were always just kind of a hot mess the whole time when I was growing up.
Nice.
But I love Transformers. I do have I am branded the Decepticon. Oh. So
awesome. Oh my gosh, that's cool. Yeah, I've definitely got experience watching Transformers. I remember the movie, but especially Generation 1 was the 80s version. That was kind of where it hit for me. You know what I mean? I always loved Optimus Prime, so I assume there's not worry of any spoilers here. But them killing off Optimus Prime was sacrilegious to me. But yeah, I mean, I've always had fond memories. I mean, anything like, you know, giant mechs, you know, all that kind of stuff always hit home for me. I always loved that kind of stuff. So, very, 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 very awesome way to start this, Nick. You know, you can't go wrong with Transformers.
And this one has lasted the test of time. This movie, when I got this, from you guys remember Sam Goody or Musicland, the mall, Suncoast, or I'm trying to think of others that were in the malls, and you could buy your home video stuff. This is the movie that I was like, I need to own this because, again, the video rental store. We didn't even have a Blockbuster in my little town. We had to go far and wide for a Blockbuster, but we had mom and pop ones that were around, and even the grocery store had video rental. And so, you know, rented this so many times, I was like, I just got to get it because I love that 80s music in it. I mean, it's just like, you can't go wrong. Even Weird Al Yankovic. I mean, it's like, and I got the soundtrack too. I still have it when I special ordered it as a kid. It was like really a different thing to do to get into mail order, you know, products, and got the disc. And I was like, you know, the money was going out. I was just hoping that I was going to get merch in the end. And it was like, it did come in, and it was like in good shape. And I even remember reading, you know, all the lyrics and things, and who produced the songs. This is just a bit of trivia, and I'll shut up. The producer for Weird Al Yankovic is Rick Derringer. Rick Derringer from the McCoys, Hang On Sloopy, Sloopy Hang On, the Ohio State fight song. Rick Derringer is actually from my hometown of Union City, and he's come back several times. He's played guitar for several other, you know, bands. He was a one-hit wonder with the McCoys, Hang On Sloopy. Met him several times. Awesome guitar player. He's quite up there in years, but he could still wail on the guitar. He's amazing. You know, big fan of Jimmy. He's a big fan of Jimi Hendrix, and he can just play like Jimi Hendrix was reborn. But he was the album producer for Weird Al Yankovic, and I'm just like, I've got the Transformers soundtrack in here, and it ties back to my hometown of Union City. I couldn't even believe that like
cool.
That was awesome. My little connection to my Transformers movie that I love so much. But yeah, other aspects about Transformers you guys like to talk about?
You know, one thing that I remember growing up and was prominent in my life, Transformers wise, was the Beast Wars. That 3D, you know, early 3D CGI. You know, just I grew up with Beast Wars, and Beast Wars was always fun to me. I always liked the animal changes and everything like that. The Dinobots, though, are near and dear to my heart. I do love the Dinobots. Now, I'll start. What are your guys' favorite Transformer? Like, if you had to pick one, what's your favorite? Mine, Soundwave. I love Soundwave.
Well, you already know mine, Optimus. I gave that away.
I have always been a big fan of Devastator, actually. And I know that's kind of cheating because he's several Decepticons put together. But when it comes together, it's one robot. So it reminded me of the Voltron thing, and then later the Power Rangers and, you know, the mechs that all combine together. So, and I love the movie when they do form Devastator, and you have that just really deep voice when he's like, prepare for destruction or whatever he says. Like, it's just amazing. And they make it so epic in that movie with the music, and that beautiful hand-drawn animation, you know, pre-CGI, and just asking a computer to do all the work for you. These guys knew how to animate and make it entertaining. But yeah, that's that would be my favorite of the Transformers. But yeah, Beast Wars was awesome too.
Yep.
And he was actually, when you said to bring it around the table here, Everett and I must think in sync, because I was about to mention Beast Wars as well, because I grew up, I remember it in the late 90s airing. I think I was around, for me, it was around like 6th or 7th grade. And I just remember it was such a cool, like, it was that early 3D style cartoon art, but it was really, really well done. I remember they had such a almost like a really heart-wrenching story arc throughout the show as well. It was, but that I was always a big fan of Beast Wars, and even when they went back to Cybertron and the what was it, Beast Machines became the follow-up. So
Yeah, and it's like they became so popular, the Transformers, that they made the Michael Bay live action movies, which I gave up honestly after I think the second one, and they just kept making them, and I'm just like, I'm exhausted watching the first and second ones because it's just too much, and I'm saying, I just really didn't enjoy them as much as I thought I would. It was great to see, Peter Cullen doing the voice of Optimus. I mean, you just got to have Peter Cullen. That's the voice. But what did you guys think of those movies?
Every now and then I pop in one of the Michael Bay movies. Again, I can only handle so much of those movies at a time because there's just always so much happening with all that CGI. And granted, it looks cool. They are kind of just those turn off the brain and just kind of enjoy them type entertainment value films. I want to say I do prefer probably the first two versus everything else, but I have seen them all. I actually was really impressed with the most recent one that came out that had the beasts in them. What was it called? I forget. Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah,
that was actually pretty good. I was actually really impressed with that one, and I was invested in the plot and everything that was going on. And sure, you still had your stupid, comedy here and there that's been famous for those films. But at the end of the day, they're fun. They make you laugh. It's a bunch of eye candy, giant robots slugging it out. What's not to love? You just kind of turn off your brain, and it's just mindless fun. But they are not like my favorite type of Transformers media to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, not much on my end. I was kind of the same with you, Nick. I pretty much checked out after the second movie. I'm like, I'm done. Like I said, it was cool to get Peter Cullen. I think they got Frank Welker as well. But I was. Michael Bay is safe to say not one of my favorite directors, but I'll leave it at that. So
all good on Transformers. Everett, take it away.
Well, wait, one more thing.
Yes.
But and Nick, I know you'll agree with me on this one though. But Transformers 1, though, that just came out, that movie had no right being that good. I did not go into the theater expecting that movie to be that good. I really enjoyed Transformers 1. I thought that was a fun movie.
Yeah, we enjoyed that, actually. Watched it with the kids, and they were locked in. The animation was cool. The backstory. I do wonder sometimes what Hollywood's trying to say with this whole let's go back to when the villains weren't villains and somehow relate to them. Like, with Mufasa, and we're going to see Scar, Wicked, we're going to see the Wicked Witch. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Disney was doing that too with Cruella, and I forget was the other one. Maleficent, yeah. It's like, I don't know. I guess this one kind of worked because you started to see the degradation of Megatron in that. And he was voiced by, wasn't that Brian Tyree from Godzilla X Kong and Godzilla vs. Kong? Right?
Yep. He was that too. That was voiced by. I was actually surprised, and it was, he did a good job.
Yeah, I really, honestly, if I hadn't looked it up, I was like, he's actually just playing the role very well, and I didn't think much of it. And other than that, I didn't think of him as Bernie from GVK and GXK. So I was like, hey, that worked actually. So kudos to them. But yeah, take it, Everett.
Just so what's something else that I grew up with? Oh man, before we get into like Godzilla and kaiju stuff and anything else like that, talking about another IP, as far as growing up in the era that I did of Cartoon Network, I grew up with Toonami. So I grew up with a lot of those action-y style cartoons, Samurai Jack. There was, Gundam Wing was also big and part of me. And of course, that kind of goes in with the Transformers. You got the giant mechs duking it out and everything. Dragon Ball Z was also part of my upbringing and stuff too. When I was a kid, watching Dragon Ball Z on Toonami and everything like that, really became a big fan of that series, and just loved the whole Saiyan saga. Story of Goku going through his battles from Vegeta to Frieza to Cell, and then Majin Buu and everything else after that. But I loved a lot of that stuff growing up, but I did really also love a lot of the older cartoons. So when I was also growing up, we had Cartoon Network, and then there was Boomerang, which I actually watched a lot more because I loved watching the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Johnny Quest, the old Scooby-Doo, a lot of those classics. And of course, the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series. I love the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series. A lot of people rag on that a lot. I know Richie, so if he ever watches this, he's going to give me a hard time. Leslie probably too. But you know what? I loved the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series. It was fun. It was just, the Godzilla Power Hour when that was on, and that's what they called it. Oh, I was always there. I mean, just the adventures that they went on. The episodes were very well done. Like all the different monsters Godzilla faced and everything like that. It is just an awesome series, and I cannot wait for somebody to get their hands on the license of that series so we can get the rest of them released on physical media, because we only got like the first half, I want to say, from classic media, I believe it was. I have all 3 of those volumes, but we're missing a lot more episodes that are out there. And one of my favorites was Micro Godzilla, I believe it was called. And when he got shrunk down to like the small size of a molecule, and he's like fighting bacteria and house spiders and stuff like that, I just thought that was so much fun. And I really hope somebody gets their hands on the license for that show, because I need the rest of it in my physical media collection for sure. Michael, go ahead.
Okay, wow, there's a lot to pack in here. Well, I guess I'll start with the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. That's definitely a show I watched all the time as a kid as well, and I used to love it too. The only thing that really got to me with that was the roar for Godzilla, because it just, I just wish that they would have. I mean, they had the ability to use the Godzilla name. I don't know why they didn't use the roar. That was the big thing that got to me. Plus the fact that he breathed fire instead of atomic breath. But I mean, maybe that's a little nitpicky. But otherwise, though, I always had fun with that. I like that little transmitter that I don't remember the human cast name, but they used that to call him. And even Godzuki was a kind of, funny, had the Scooby-Doo voice kind of thing as your comic relief character. But I always enjoyed that. And then, of course, like you said, the monster fights are always really fun with that. But yeah, all the old school cartoons, like you said, Johnny Quest, the Flintstones, the Jetsons. I remember all those shows as well, and even further back, older than those, I was always a big fan of like Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry as well. So, I mean, these are all cartoons that I grew up with. And then, of course, going into Toonami, and that became a huge part of my childhood. And, my love for Dragon Ball Z is certainly up there with any of my other fandoms, I guess you'd call them, that I'm into. And I even just for that brought out season 1. Now, obviously this is from the DVD collection, but I'm just trying to think of things to sort of incorporate here. So this is season 1, the Saiyan Saga, and it's actually signed by Christopher Sabat, who voiced Vegeta in the show. I know, Nick, this is probably going over your head because you're not really a Dragon Ball fan. But certainly something that's always been very near and dear to my heart. And I remember too, for the longest time, and maybe you remember this as well, Everett, that we only got like the first couple seasons worth, where it ended like halfway through the Namek saga, and waiting forever and a day for them to start showing new episodes. And once they finally did, I was like, my mind was blown basically. So but yeah, and I even remember, like, even before Toonami, I remember on, I don't know if it was like ABC, like when they used to show cartoons on like Saturday mornings, or so. It was one of those channels used to show like Dragon Ball. I caught it a couple times. I just never had the chance to really delve into it until the days of Toonami. But once Toonami hit, I became a fan of that. That and Sailor Moon were actually kind of the two heavy hitters for me that I used to watch on Toonami. And then, of course, I would branch out. I'd be watching Voltron. I'm sure you guys are fans of that as well. You know, all these cool cartoons and anime that they used to have on there. And one of my oldest anime, and I actually just recently got a figure of it, and I should have thought to bring it out for this, was an anime called Gigantor. Or for me specifically, this was the 1980s version, which was the New Adventures of Gigantor. But it was actually, again, it was based on the anime, which is actually Tetsujin 28. And I think the 80s version, I think it was called actually Shin Tetsujin 28. But that was one of my oldest experiences with anime. And, definitely really something I loved. I mean, Gigantor, Tetsujin, a giant robot. So again, your giant mech kind of anime, and he's fighting other giant mechs and giant monsters. And he's even fighting like creatures and robots that are even like he's like 100 feet. I think he's about 100 feet tall, but he's even fighting some that are like 4 times his size. And just, it was just epic. If you guys haven't ever seen, Gigantor, I definitely recommend you guys check it out, because I think both of you would actually enjoy it. So I know I'm starting to ramble on, so Nick, I'll pass it over to you.
It's all good. Yeah, I've seen a little Gigantor and definitely the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla. And unfortunately, I did get Boomerang. Now it's off the air. Boomerang is the streaming service and everything that was Boomerang. And I enjoyed it because, of course, those classic cartoons and my kids and I like to watch those together. They had Courage the Cowardly Dog on there. I mean, it was like, this was a great collection. But they didn't have the Godzilla series, unfortunately, so they didn't have the rights to that. But they had the Looney Tunes. They even had some other obscure Looney Tunes titles, the movies that they put out, and some of the compilation collections that were on there. But yeah, Hanna-Barbera was always, fun stuff to check out and show the kids. And there were some, there were some weird ones in there too. But gosh, yeah, the Godzilla series. And I was like, we're talking about our childhood. Some of those re-aired on like TNT and some of the other places after their prime. And I was even looking it up. I couldn't remember what year the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla came out. Is 78. Predates me. I'm like, dang. So yeah,
it's a lot older than people remember it being. Yeah, it's not even the 80s. It's just before.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Chris Cupers is in the chat. Good to see you.
Long time no hear from. Hope you're doing okay, buddy.
All right, awesome, man. Yeah, he's the first in the chat, so it may be that everyone's got something to do, or they're just being real quiet tonight.
Yeah, so I was going to say, you guys feel free to chime in if any of this stuff are things that you guys remember and are into. Please feel free to join in, because we want to read your chats and converse with you guys as well. So
yeah. And one of the next other things too, going into old cartoons, of course, Nick, you mentioned Masters of the Universe, and something that was kind of a clone copy, in a way. I forget what came out first and vice versa, but the Herculoids was also one of my favorite cartoons, and that reminded me a lot of He-Man, Masters, because it was kind of the same thing. You had a barbarian, you had these creatures with special powers and stuff. And it was, I love the Herculoids. Herculoids is actually my dad's favorite cartoon. He loves the Herculoids. So every now and then we'll get together and we'll sit down and we'll watch some Herculoids together, because I have the complete Herculoid series on Blu-ray. So that was a nice find that I found one day.
Chris was playing the Fortnite Godzilla event. Goodness gracious.
Oh, no.
combining Godzilla and Fortnite. I don't even know what to think. But
Shame, Chris. Shame.
That's we're in the 21st century now. So
I am getting older, so old. What is Fortnite? Yeah. So I'm like, goodness. Even Dragon Ball, like you said earlier, I'm just it was just not my time, I guess. So when it came out, that and the Pokemon kind of thing, I was getting to I was too sophisticated and getting older, and was into other things. But of course I came full circle. I got into, my older years and treasured those things we grew up with and started recollecting and rewatching. And it was just like, yeah, who could be too cool for some of this stuff? I don't know. I thought I probably was at one point, but yeah. So yeah, the classic cartoons. And Everett, was that kind of what you wanted to bring up? I wanted to give Michael, unless you wanted to talk about the Dragon Ball, Michael.
Well, I guess we could touch more on that later because we kind of hit a little bit of the surface of it. I was thinking of maybe trying to bring up some other things that we're into, and I'm hoping we'll engage some people to start conversing with us. One of my childhood favorites, and I know Nick, you're on board with me, are none other than the heroes in a half shell themselves, the Teenage Ninja Turtles. And I was going to bring out because I have the NECA versions of both the cartoon and the 90s turtle, but I figured I'll just go ahead and bust out the old Playmates toys. And these are the old ones from the late 80s, early 90s. So I know, Everett, you're not huge on the Turtles, but I'm sure you at least remember these guys, though.
Yep.
So. Of course, I've done a little tweaking to them over the years because I didn't like a lot of these figures had like straps going around them, and I always remember the Turtles in the cartoon just had the belts without any other appendages or whatever to their outfits. So I kind of tweaked them a little bit. I kind of wish I hadn't done that, but the Turtles was huge for me, especially as a younger kid. I mean, if I remember correctly, the 1990 film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was actually the first film I ever saw in movie theaters. So that's definitely got a special place for me. And to me, what a way to have my inaugural movie theater experience being for the Turtles, you know what I mean? Because I love that 90 film. I will admit, when I was a kid, I probably liked Secret of the Ooze a little bit better because I liked them going against Toka and Razar and having, like other mutants to fight and whatnot. But as an adult, you certainly learn to appreciate the dark tone, I guess you'd call it, of the original movie, and just how well done it really is. I mean, I rewatch it and I'm kind of blown away, and including like Jim Henson and his team, the effects work that they did on the puppetries and everything. It's incredible. So that, so certainly very near and dear to my heart. And of course, again, watching the 87 cartoon growing up, I loved all the characters on there, not just the Turtles and, Splinter and Casey Jones, April O'Neil. Of course, you had the bad guys, Shredder and Krang, and the two of them always bickering back and forth like an old married couple, which I loved. And of course, you had Bebop and Rocksteady and, Baxter Stockman, Leatherhead, Slash, all these really, really, great characters on the show, and then, like I said, and then the films. So am I cutting out or
no?
You're just fine. Keep going.
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. All right. Because it looked like I disappeared for a second. So I just want to make sure. So I can certainly ramble on about the Turtles. And of course, the NES, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES, was one of my first two video game experiences I ever had when I got my original Nintendo Entertainment System. And I don't care what anybody, because I know that game's got a bad rap, especially from the AVGN video, which you've probably heard Mike Matei later regret that he made it, because he loves that game. And for me, it's actually one of my favorite games of all time. It's definitely top 10.
It's a fun game, but it is hard.
It is very hard, yes. When I finally made it through it, I was so happy. But yeah. Man. So I'll leave you guys. I know, Everett, you probably don't have a lot, but Nick, I'm sure you got some thoughts on this. So.
Oh my gosh, I loved the Turtles growing up. I had that album, we say album, but we actually meant cassette tape of the concert, the Turtles on tour, I think coming out of our Shells tour. Oh my gosh, I listened to that all the time. I had a friend who had the VHS tape, which I copied promptly, so that I was definitely into the video, AV nerd kind of stuff too, because I copied that so I could get my own copy because I wanted to watch that all the time. I had turtle costume for Halloween. It was just made between my mom and a friend of hers, made the shell actually, and my mom made the rest of the outfit. I mean, I was Raphael. The whole Turtles thing made us appreciate Renaissance artists, didn't it? Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo. Oh my goodness. And even the theme song to the original 80s cartoon series was so epic. And even that animation, I wish the rest of the show looked like that, but it was pretty good open to get you super pumped for the show. And man, yeah, they were just they epitomized the late 80s, early 90s with their Marvel sort of way, of throwing kind of catchphrases and kind of like the slang of the time, very much of its time. But yeah, love that show. And I even had on a cassette tape too, listening to it in the car, driving my parents crazy on road trips, that theme song, any of the other Turtle music that I could get, because I wanted to take it with me. Had the handheld, Turtle game, and I played the NES game. Love the Super Nintendo game or the arcade game.
Yes, the arcade game.
On the arcade, yes. The actual arcade game on the arcade console. The NES version of it wasn't too bad, but yeah, that one had amazing graphics, and you could play tons of other people, around you and just pump the quarters. So yeah, I'll shut up about Turtles, but yeah, we'll get and go to Fan 93's comment here real quick. He says it's not super amazing from what he's seen so far. So hey, it's got Godzilla. So he's got to give it a try.
Get that,
yeah. But yeah, no, not much to add for the Turtles on my end. I don't even know what it was. Like, I remember I had some of the action figures. I remember watching the cartoons, the 90s films and stuff. But I just never was big into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But speaking of like the 90s films and like those kind of practical effects with the suits and stuff like that, something that I do have right here on my desk that I can easily relate to that I grew up with. And some of you might agree with this, but I loved dinosaurs growing up. Not to mama. That was one of my things. I absolutely loved this show growing up. I thought it was fantastic. I loved the use of the practical effects and the suits and the animatronic faces and everything. I loved the dinosaur show, and I am so glad that it is on Disney Plus for me to revisit and rewatch, because I loved that show to death. That show is so much fun.
Great theme song too.
I remember. Yeah, I love dinosaurs. I remember I always used to tune in and watch it because I think they aired like weekly new episodes. I remember I wouldn't miss it when I was a kid, and I just remember Earl and Earl, of course, was my favorite character. Because
Earl was great.
Yeah, and then of course I forgot his boss's name, but he always used to yell Sinclair and
Sinclair, get in here.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. The weirdest thing was it was a silly show, but then the last episode was like so tragic, though.
It really was. Oh my goodness! But yeah, now dinosaurs. I love that show, so I can kind of relate to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in that way, just because the dinosaur suits and then the turtle suits and the way the animatronics and stuff kind of worked. It kind of all went hand in hand. And then again, just with the practical effects stuff that we grew up and love in general, that stuff just always appealed to us. I mean, I wish stuff was more practical today. Sometimes all the CGI and computer enhanced stuff makes my eyes hurt just a little too much.
for me, practical any day. I just love the way it looks. To me, CGI looks a little too cartoonish to me, but you know, that's a story for another day. So
Yeah.
It's such a lost art, and the Jim Henson, team that put together so many of these animatronic effects for the dinosaurs, for the turtles. Yeah, I like showing the kids things like the Dark Crystal and the Muppet movies, and just how well put together these effects. The Never-Ending Story.
Never-Ending Story.
Never-Ending Story was big for me. Yep. And I always believe it or not, I love the first movie, and I also love the second one. I know a lot of people bash on the second one, but I remember it was on like HBO, I think, all the time. So I had a lot of exposure to it, plus the first film. So, man, Falcor was I wanted a pet Falcor for myself.
Quick trivia for Everett. I know probably Michael already knows, but do you know who voiced the Shredder in the original cartoon for the Turtles?
Wasn't it the guy that played Uncle Phil on Fresh Prince? Yeah, right. I forget his name, but I know that was the guy that voiced Shredder. Yeah. I got you on that one.
That voice is just so epic, and when he's when he's like just going nuts because the turtles, they thwarted my plans, and I'm just like Uncle Phil, throwing DJ Jazzy Jeff out.
Man, I know. The funny thing was the 90 movie was it was like a weird blend of the silly cartoon and then of course the original Mirage comics that came out for it, because those were nothing like the cartoon. Those were very dark, and if I remember correctly, like very bloody and whatnot too. So, so it's kind of cool that the movie actually took a blending of the two. But as a kid, I just ate it up. So, and I kind of wish I would have gotten into the comics when I was younger as well. But I guess I didn't even really realize about them because I just remember being exposed to the cartoon and the figures and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I know. I kind of, I'm bouncing off tangents here. Though. So we were talking about Shredder, and then I started talking about this and that. So
I know, but they did. I mean, it was a mouthful for the parents to say, "I'm here at the toy store and I'm looking for some sort of turtles," and they couldn't say, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then later we went with the TMNT. That was much easier.
Right.
Yeah.
They started abbreviating it. That came like more like 2000s era, I think, before they actually started abbreviating it like that. So if we didn't call it the full Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we usually just said Ninja Turtles, and and then you kind of went with it from there. So
yeah, there was kind of a 90s homage in a sense with the Turtle Mania that was happening. Do you guys remember the Three Ninjas movies?
Yep, I remember. I have the first one.
Yeah, because that was during that same turtle time, and it was like, every kid wanted to be the ninja and fight each other and such. So but
those movies are so silly. But I used to love them, and it's kind of funny though. You got these little kids beating the crap out of adults.
I know. Yeah. Oh man, what we could get away with in the 90s, especially.
I know, right?
Yeah. Anything more on the turtles, guys?
I think we'll move on to the next topic. So.
Okay. Got to talk some He-Man, Masters of the Universe, Everett. Just briefly, I just like some things that I had in my childhood. So this was a read-along book of The Secret of the Sword, which was the crossover of He-Man and She-Ra, or the first appearance. Yeah, sorry, that green screen effect is kind of like throwing it off, but yeah, this was a.
Can you pop up just? Yep. Can you pop up just yourself, Nick?
Yeah,
might give us all a better view of it.
If you can see that, that green screen effect's kind of messing with it. But can you see it there?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see it.
That's pretty cool.
She-Ra, man, that's pretty cool.
So you would read along with a cassette tape, which I've lost the cassette tape over the years. But it's the entirety of the short film, essentially, of the the 2-part episodes of the He-Man She-Ra crossover that happened. So you'd read along with the book, and the cassette tape had audio from the cartoon. So it wasn't just somebody reading to you. It was actually the characters in character doing, the sound effects, and you'd hear the swooshing of the swords and the blasting of the lasers and all that. But yeah, huge He-Man fan. I was from a kid, waking up early in the morning and seeing him on Saturday morning cartoons, watching the Masters of the Universe cartoon series, and then later the 87 movie, which again grew up with that, watched the heck out of it, and just ate up every bit of that. Every kid thought he was He-Man during a certain point, and just an amazing IP that I still collect. Taking a back seat a little bit because there's not much kind of happening with He-Man. There was the new Netflix series, but then it just kind of like is not doing much. And then I guess there's a new movie with Liam Hemsworth in it that's being made. I'll know it when I see it because it's like that's been tried several times, and the only time that it actually happened on the big screen was the 87 movie. So,
right.
But yeah, you could make an entire series out of just the He-Man IP. But I'll move on from here. Everett, got anything to say about Master Universe?
I mean, you know me, I'm the same as you, even though, I grew up in just a few years later, I still grew up with the classic He-Man cartoon series. I remember it being on, TV and Saturday morning cartoons. I remember coming home from school, watching the 2000X series. That cartoon series was a lot of fun. The 87 movie, same as you, when I was growing up and everything, I watched the heck out of that movie. Star Wars, all that stuff kind of went hand in hand, and just really enjoyed it, really loved it. Again, kind of like what you said, we'll know more onto what to say when we see it. But I mean, the latest Masters of the Universe has been in production hell for how long now, and it just has not been able to get off the ground. So it's me and Nick are very patient at this point with that. It's like, you know what? If it comes, great. If it doesn't, you know what? We got plenty. But I love Masters of the Universe. You guys have seen my stuff. Nick, you helped me get the Castle Grayskull. I got my gigantic Snake Mountain. I love those things. I love the figures. I love my Frank Langella Skeletor figures that I have. Nick, you helped me acquire that guy. I love Masters of the Universe. You name it. I just love that series. Love that IP. I love all the figures from Origins to Vintage, which I don't have any of my old Vintage. I used to have some of the older Vintage figures, but those got lost to time. But I do love collecting the Origins. Those are nice throwbacks to the ones that I grew up with as a kid. And of course, now you have a lot better articulation and sculpts. And so the figures just look fantastic. I love the Origins line. I love my giant Mondo Skeletor that I have. I love the play sets. I love just absolutely everything. It's a great IP. It looks great on the shelf. Love Masters of the Universe. Love that Christmas special, too.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't like to feel good. I like to feel evil.
Oh, man. Anything you got on Mo too, Michael?
Yeah, well, I grew up with Masters of the Universe as well, the 80s cartoon especially. I used to I haven't watched it in a long time, but I always, when I was younger, I always used to watch it, and I used to love it. And I always, maybe it's just me, I always used to get goosebumps every time Prince Adam would hold up his sword and say, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power, and transform. Oh, and that amazing transformation and the echo effect that they did. And then, once He-Man and Battle Cat came on the scene, you knew that they were going to kick some serious butt, and, Skeletor was a great villain. Of course, I remember the 87 movie as well. Always been a fan of that. My only, I guess if you want to call it nitpick with the 87 movie, well, I guess a combination of two things. A, you didn't see Prince Adam at all. He was just He-Man the whole time. And Dolph Lundgren was a great casting for He-Man, but I wish that they would have had like somebody doing Prince Adam and then transforming into Dolph Lundgren as He-Man. And I wish that we would have had Battle Cat. So I felt like those were two pieces that were missing. Probably the Battle Cat part might have been budgetary reasons, because you have to get like a real live, tiger or cougar or something like that that you'd have to use. And that you're talking, though, that they that if you know the production story behind this movie, they actually took money from another IP that is very near and dear to me, Superman, and Christopher Reeve as Superman. They took money. Canon Films produced Masters of the Universe, so and they also produced the same year Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. So they took a big chunk of that budget to put into Masters of the Universe. It's a really weird story, and I guess part of the reason for Canon's downfall, because you heard that they were really hemorrhaging money financially because all their films ended up sort of bombing, but it's kind of funny though now, how we really think of, like, especially Masters of the Universe as a cult classic. And again, like you said, the only live action version up until this point that we've had. I've heard about the new movie, and I've heard that they're trying to do like a dark and gritty take on it. And I'm like, no, for He-Man, no. I always remember that just being a very fun, entertaining, cartoon and whatnot. I don't see the point in trying to do a gritty remake of it, but we'll see what happens. And it's funny too when you think about it, like IP that they've tried to redo many times and hasn't come to fruition yet. I always think of Popeye, that we only got the live action Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall version from 1980, which I grew up with as well, and I was always a big fan of that film. So, but yeah, again, I know I'm starting to ramble on a tangent here, but just remembering all this stuff. But yeah, well, He-Man was always awesome. So.
And the Battle Cat, I have actually personally talked to Gary Goddard, who directed the film, and yeah, he said there's just no way optically there's way to make Battle Cat, Orko. There's so much of that IP that they could have used. So just to get it made, they had to stick with a budget and do a lot of cutting with the IP and trying to make it something that worked. And of course, having it being taken to Earth is part of the way to do that. But yeah, even with the budget they had to be able to get Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella to do the roles they had, as iconic as they were. But yeah, there's so much to love about that film and this IP. But one of the things, more recently, I watched the 2011 Thor film with my kids, and they're kind of like, this is a lot like He-Man. And I was just like, you're kind of right. Some of this mythology mixed with technology, mythical world, and coming to Earth. I was like, there is a lot. And of course, your superhero that you have, is this amazingly, God-like, not God, but God-like, strong character. And he has a special weapon, of course. So I think that Kenneth Branagh, who did that film, actually, who's a great director within himself too, should do a justifiable, He-Man film. But he probably costs too much. Like anything else, they'll try and keep making it and trying again, and it'll get into production hell. Something will happen that ticks off somebody in the IP, and it just will fall apart. I mean, there's so many times that they tried to get it made. And speaking of Masters of the Universe, is our good friend Loosely Collected. Is he know anything? Universe? Jonathan, good to have you. Yeah, I know that I've talked to Motu with this guy quite a bit, so good to have you. But yeah, we could talk Motu all day long. But yeah, let's move on to our next IP. What do you got, Everett?
Well, I think since we want this show to be about an hour, we could probably take up the rest of the time. We'll probably go a little over an hour, but I think it's time to talk about our lovely kaiju, Godzilla, all that fun stuff that we grew up with. I mean, let me just start naming it off. Mystery Science Theater 3000, TNT Monster Division, Godzilla Incorporated, Godzilla Power Hour, whatever you want to call them that they had on TV growing up. Oh man, we were there. We were watching it. We loved it. Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Giant Behemoth, Reptilicus, The Last Dinosaur, Valley of Guanji. I can keep going. Michael, take it away.
Oh my gosh. Where do I even begin? You know, it's funny how, and I know I've touched on this before with you guys, but like very, very early on, my initial experiences, because I always loved dinosaurs, and obviously Godzilla is sort of a spawn off of that, you know, if you will, in a way. But I remember going to the Museum of Natural History when I was, I think I was about 3 or 4 years old. My grandmother took me when I was still living in New York. And I got my first exposure to the dinosaur exhibits there, fell in love with them, especially the T-Rex. So was he's the king, you know what I mean? He or she, you know, my favorite dinosaur. And then, of course, a couple of years later, after I moved down to Florida, finally TNT, I believe was the one it was that aired the original King Kong. And that catapulted my love for King Kong right there and then once I saw that film and got into it. And the original King Kong is still one of my favorite films of all time. And it really that really kicked off because I do consider Kong a kaiju. You know, he's a giant monster, if you will, you know, if you want to say a giant ape, but giant monster. And it kicked off my love for the kaiju genre. And a couple years later, once Monster Vision aired Godzilla Bash 94, is when I finally got my true exposure to Godzilla. I remember when I was roughly 3-ish, I remember there was a channel in New York that played a couple Godzilla films, and I have a little bit of tidbits of memory of it. But when you're that age, it's really hard to sort of really take it in, you know what I mean? But once I finally got the true chance to watch it on Monster Vision, I was completely hooked from that point forward. And I've been a huge Godzilla and kaiju fan ever since. And of course, for me, you know, because we have all these different eras of Godzilla, for me, Showa has always been the nearest and dearest to my heart. It's what I grew up watching. It's what I've watched the most of, and it's what I love the most. I love those 50s, 60s, 70s era Godzilla films. I mean, you know, again, like you said, with Godzilla, the IP, we can go on and on and on for it. So just kind of denoting where that all kind of started for me, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to Nick so you can speak on it.
I won't take too long. I would kind of like to talk about some of the more obscure stuff too. Growing up, obviously that is Godzilla related. Obviously, I was a huge fan of getting into the VHS store and renting anything that I could find Godzilla related. Gamera was in there, and on TV there was this giant monster show called Ultraman, but it was the Australian Ultraman Towards the Future, which started it for me with Ultraman. I did not know the Japanese one. My dad did, actually, because he grew up with that airing on television. So this was a bit of a different kind of Ultraman, but I love the monster effects in this. It was reminding me of everything I loved about Godzilla. And this, you know, became kind of, you know, the superhero for me. And then we later had the Power Rangers, but this came first. This came before the Power Rangers and Super Sentai and whatever else. But yeah, this Australian series really, you know, it was on, and there was like only, I think, about 9 to 12 episodes, something like that. And, you know, some really awesome, you know, city battles and destruction and, you know, the giant mech and kaiju kind of thing going on, and some 90s humor mixed in there as well. But yeah, that was a fun series, and anything monster related, anything that I could get with a giant monster, you know, thank the Lord when Jurassic Park came out too, you know, and it was just like, we weren't, you know, seeing a whole lot in the United States when it come to the giant dinosaurs. And so it was like, man, that one was like, oh, great, a good dinosaur movie. It's going to be fun. It's going to be, holy moly, this thing is scaring me. You know, I was a little kid then, and it was just like, you know, one of those things when they say edge of your seat. This movie was that in the theaters. I was not expecting that. And I was like, can we watch it again? I don't know how many times we went back to the theaters to watch that movie. So, yeah. So, real quick, Jonathan, I can recall that the Aussie Ultraman show in the 90s, I wish I'd seen more and picked up the toys from KB Toys. Yes, there's a throwback. Yep. KB Toys in the mall. Yeah, that's where I got these, the DreamWorks figures of the Ultraman. These are not Bandai, though I do have some Bandai Japan Ultraman Towards the Future. In Japan, it's known as Ultraman the Great. There's your Trend Masters. Oh, yeah.
Yep, we got our Trend Masters. That's another thing we grew up with.
Always grew up with those. That was my first true time being able to collect not just Godzilla, but other kaiju as well in figure form. I absolutely love the Trend Masters line. So, but yeah, and funny thing, Nick, you mentioned about like that 90s Aussie Ultraman. Now for me, it's not the same, but I do remember this 90s show I used to watch, and it was actually the kid from Mrs. Doubtfire was in it, and he had like a bracelet or something, and then he would transform. And I know that there's actually, I believe it's a Japanese version of it. Bear with me, I have my box right here, and I think I remember the name, but I remember a couple, like he would transform into this guy. I think he's called Gridman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was a 90s cartoon. Then we had this mech as well here. So I don't know if this looks familiar to you guys. I don't know how well that's showing up on the camera. But I believe
that's Gridman, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I remember having these, and he would transform. He'd go into like, I don't know, like a computer realm or something like that, and he'd be taking on like giant kaiju and whatnot. And it was a cool show. I don't remember how long it lasted, but I guess it was probably a takeoff of because I'm guessing the Japanese property was Gridman, and then they made it into, like I said, like that 90s show, and it was with the kid, the boy from Mrs. Doubtfire. So if you guys, I don't know if that rings a bell or if I'm just seeming totally crazy. You guys.
I think you're right on. It might have been called Gridman in Japan. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that it was actually called VR Troopers in the United States. I could be wrong.
That kind of rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he did enter a computer realm. VR was kind of it was a thing then it came back. I don't know. It's kind of weird now. But yeah, right. I think that's what it was called in the United States. Like Super Sentai became Power Rangers in the United States. So I believe that's what it was. Jonathan's talking some Jurassic Park. Watched it 2 times when it came out. Second time was a drive-in. Yes, I did see it at our local drive-in here in Randolph County, Indiana, and we watched all these cars full of kids loading in and Samuel Jackson's arm. That's the one thing when I watch it with my kids, I have to be like skipping past because I think it's just a little too much. Everything else is kind of like go right ahead and get scared of the T-Rex smashing through the kids' windows in that car. Oh my goodness.
I know.
I did hear that was the one time that the kid actors actually felt afraid during production was when the T-Rex's mouth goes through that skylight and
well, didn't they
break off?
Wasn't it a thing that they didn't tell them that was going to happen or something, and it was like part of it was like fully like improvised and actual reactions and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I can see that happening.
Kind of like with Alien, you know. None of those actors and actresses in the original Alien knew what they were so left in the dark by. So a lot of that shock and terror is literally their reactions live on camera, which I think is pretty cool.
It adds more of a sense of realism to, instead of just, oh, this is going to happen and then you're going to react. No, instead they just completely catch you off guard. I like when they do stuff like that. No. I remember Jurassic Park when I saw it was around 8-ish. So I remember seeing that in the theater with my parents, and that was like an event. I mean, that was, because like I said, I was already a big dinosaur fan, and that was just an amazing experience. And still that ending scene with the raptors in the main hall and about to attack Grant and the others, and then the T-Rex comes in at the last second and takes them out, and then that huge roar with the banner falling, when dinosaurs rule the earth. I mean, that to me is just so iconic, and you can't top it. And that had such a great blending of both practical animatronic effects plus the use of CGI to a point but it was really well done, and it's amazing.
Very well done
today.
Oh yeah, yeah. To watching it today with young people, it's just like it was made yesterday because it just blends so well. It doesn't become too much of a time capsule of saying this was just a '90s kind of film. It could have happened, yesterday. So I think that there's so much that Steven Spielberg and his team, his crew, puts into that, and that kind of blew up the world of visual effects for us. I've always said that when it comes down to visual effects, there's Jurassic Park comes in number 4. I always say that it began with the original King Kong, and then we got the first color film with Wizard of Oz. Because the visual effects in that and the first color film to be able to, these were they were game changers. And then we had a long time. I mean, there was lots of visual effects in between, but when it really became altogether different, the world is now a different place in the world of entertainment. Star Wars, 1977. Where would we be without that? And then we got Jurassic Park. We had CGI became the way you do things and replacing a lot of the practical effects for better or for worse. So it is all what it's history. So yeah, there's so much about these game changers, all these IP that we grew up with, and we could talk forever on the giant monsters things, but I want to make sure Michael gets a chance to finish it off for us with whatever you've got left, and let's go over that.
All right, well, I guess we'll sort of stay in line, but something we've certainly touched on, that of course is Power Rangers. How can we not talk about Power Rangers? Now, obviously, this is the old school version, the Bandai Dragon Zord here. I figure this would be a very cool figure to bust out. I know they've remade this one, dozens of times over, but I was always a big fan. And for me, I know that there's been so many incarnations of the Power Rangers. Obviously, like you said, started in Japan as Super Sentai. They ported it over here using a lot of the footage, cutting in with the new scenes with the American actors. It was really well done and, to me, innovative, the way that they did that, honestly, back in the early 90s, and especially doing it on a show's budget with the technology that they had. It was awesome. The Red Ranger for me was, Jason was always my favorite, but I did love Tommy, the Green Ranger, right after him. But the Mighty, for me, was always the original Mighty Morphin was the one that I mainly grew up with, and that was the one that always hit home for me, and especially with that original cast, the original 5, and then of course 6 when Tommy came on, Jason David Frank, rest in peace, of course. But that I just always had so much fond memories of that. I loved, Rita as a villain was awesome, but then of course it evolved into Lord Zed, and how the stakes got raised, and they end up having to reform the Zords into the what was it, the Thunder Megazord, from the original Dino Megazord, and the new bots and everything, and it was just so many cool things. And then of course the Dragon Zord, which I always loved as well, always of course reminded me, especially him raising out of the water, of Godzilla, or even Mecha Godzilla, because of the robotic nature of him. But of course, so many good things I could say about the Power Rangers, but want to give you guys a chance to speak. So
I'll be brief. When it comes to Power Rangers, that was just amazing to see it for the first time. And I was like, obviously I was a little older of a kid, but I still loved it because, again, of the references with Voltron and the kaiju. And so, so much of that was just like beloved. I was like, it's on a budget, but man, I want to see more of this. And I always go back to when I see the movie Jingle All the Way during Christmas, that is a direct correlation to what was happening with the Power Rangers toys when my parents were going out there trying to find me those toys and just couldn't. And because it was just sold out everywhere. The retailers weren't stocking them enough. And it's like this Power Rangers things may or may not take off. And boy, do those toys bring in a lot of money now. But man, so much of this IP to sell us the merchandising. I love it. I couldn't get enough of it. But take it away, Everett, on Power Rangers.
Power Rangers. I grew up with it a little bit, not as much as other kids, just because my generation and era when it was growing up, Power Rangers was actually looked down upon because kids were reenacting it at school. So Power Ranger, I was in that area of Power Rangers to where it was like, maybe wait till you're a little older just because of the kung fu, the violence. And it was that's the area I was with Power Rangers, which my dad didn't really agree with it because I grew up watching Godzilla and everything else. So it was all kind of the same rock'em sock'em, kaiju, robots, whatever, So it didn't really bother me all that much. But I love the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I love the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. I thought that was a lot of fun. I actually really did enjoy the special that they did on Netflix a couple years ago for the Power Rangers and stuff like that. I really did enjoy that special. I thought they did a good job on it. It would have been nice to see some of the more original guys, but I really enjoyed that special for what it was, and they did a really good job with it. I also grew up with kind of like what they like to call the Disney era of Power Rangers as well. So like one of my favorite series besides the original is Power Rangers Dino Thunder. I loved the Dino Thunder Rangers. Again, rest in peace, Jason David Frank. My favorite Ranger he portrayed was the Black Dino Thunder Ranger. I love that suit. I love that helmet. If I had to be a Power Ranger, that's what I would be all day. I loved Lord Zedd's design. Lord Zedd was scary. Power Rangers is just awesome. It's fun. Again, learning that it was originally a Japanese show and they, of course, re-edited it here for the United States and everything like that. They just like shipped over, some of the props and the suits and stuff like that for certain scenes and everything. I think Power Rangers is just great. I love Power Rangers. That's what I got on it.
Yeah, and you can't go wrong with it. It still looks great. I still, I've got the Mighty Morphin series on DVD, so show it to the kids every once in a while, and yeah, they love it. But yeah, there's sometimes with that original series, I'm like cringing at the jokes, but still, I was like, oh, during the time we love this stuff, we couldn't get enough of it. So, but yeah, that's a great way to end this first episode of the talking about my generation. There's so much we grew up with and so much to love and reminisce, go back and rewind a little bit and check out, things that, how that impacted our lives going forward and some of the things that just keep coming back because like you said, even the Netflix special on that, they make new Motu stuff. They make new Godzilla stuff. Obviously they're making new of the stuff we grew up with. I even think I heard about a Voltron movie. I don't know if it's real or not, but heard about it. Again, I'll know it when I sees it. So we'll just wait and see, if they want to put in this this kind of money for that. But yeah, let's close up. Do our outros, any shout outs and anything that you'd like to let them know. Where can they follow you and find out what you've got going out there for your kaiju content creation? Take it, Everett.
Well, you guys can find me here on YouTube and Facebook as GodzillaFanFreaks. Please like, subscribe, follow, all those great things. I also have a GodzillaFanFreaks Instagram page as well if you want to check that out. And as far as what you can look forward to from me, I really want to focus on getting back to reviews. I do have some stuff that is lined up. I have the Super 7 skeletal Godzilla reaction figure. I have an awesome new 30 centimeter X Plus Favorite Sculptors line Cybot that I got to pump out a review for and get it done because, Nick, you made me an awesome thumbnail for that. So I can't wait to get that review recorded and uploaded. I'm actually going to try to work on that tomorrow since I have a little bit of a free day. And as far as anything else, I really want to review my 4K special edition box set for the 1962 King Kong versus Godzilla Japanese release. I think that one's going to be a fun one just because it does have a cool, couple cool booklets that it came with that I would really like to go over in a review. So expect a few reviews out from my channel. I really want to get back into my live stream shows, Kaiju Chill Clocks. But that just is, if time allows and my energy levels suffice. But you guys can expect all kinds of fun content from my channel. Mr. GodzillaFan85, take it away.
Thank you for that, Everett. And I do hope that you do get back to your Kaiju Chill Clocks as well, because I always really love those streams. But yes, I am Michael, GodzillaFan85. I, of course, have my YouTube channel, GodzillaFan85, and I also have my Instagram page of the same name as well. So the Instagram sort of coincides with my YouTube channel, but I also do post some other things. I like messing around, tinkering with some of the reels and things like that. So nothing too creative, but just having a little bit of fun with that. But it's mainly to coincide with my YouTube channel. Mainly, of course, what I do is our Godzilla and Kaiju figure reviews. I still have plenty of those figures to get to, which I do plan to get to over time. I just reviewed my Bandai Movie Monster series 1955 Godzilla figure, which you guys can, if you're interested, check out on the channel. I do have his counterpart in the film, the 1955 Anguirus figure, which I'm planning to do for my next figure review. But that's going to be pushed out a little bit because in the interim, I do very excited today. I finally purchased my ticket for this year's MegaCon, which is going to be in a few weeks. So, yep, it's from the 6th to the 9th of February. I'm only going one day. I'm going to go on the Sunday because it tends to be a little bit less crowded there. Plus vendors, you can strike, you can wheel and deal a little bit better. And I do have some figures on my wish list. So I'm going to, there's usually this one guy there that's always got a bunch of Godzilla and Kaiju figures. So I'm going to hopefully see if that vendor is there and see if I can try to pick a couple things up that I have on my wish list. So that, like I said, that's in a few weeks, and my plan from that will, of course, like I usually do, a haul video. So, definitely stay tuned for that. Like I said, more Godzilla and Kaiju figure review content. And I also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, do want to do some more let's plays of some of my video games that I'm really into. So hope you guys stay tuned, and we'll take it from there. But I'll go ahead and pass it over to our host with the most, Nick.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Make sure you like and subscribe to these gentlemen's contents at GodzillaFan85 and GodzillaFanFreaks. Been fun, guys, just going over some of this stuff, looking over childhood memories. And yeah, we could talk all day on this kind of stuff. And that's why this is one of many episodes that we're going to be doing together. So I'm so glad that you guys could be on this. And yeah, as we go into the future, everyone follow the Monster Report here on YouTube, of course, on X, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm not on those other platforms, and especially the one that got shut down today or didn't get shut down today. I don't know. You know what? I woke up and I had my coffee. Oh, looked on the feed and saw TikTok was shut down. Oh, okay. Another sip of coffee and moved on with my life because I'm not on it. So not caring about that one. But yeah, of course, right here on YouTube. So like, share, subscribe, all of those great YouTube things, and appreciate your guys' time. And we'll catch you on another episode of the Monster Report Live. Have a great evening.